Hello and welcome to whatever this thing is called. Steven Universe audio log, Steven Universe commentary, Steven Universe YouTube recaps. I don't know. We haven't named it yet. We will at some point. In the tradition of our podcasts, we're always very prepared. So for those of you who don't know who we are, first of all, I'm Dan Doolan and I'm joined by Chris Billingham. Say hello, Chris.
Hello.
That is Chris. And basically, we are podcasters. We do a TV podcast called Nothing But Static, which is now well over 100 episodes,
4 years.
4.5 years. Well, 4.5 years now, Chris, terrifyingly.
100 episodes, 4.5 years, about 20 listeners. Consistently.
5 of which are my mum, 5 of which are Chris's mum. And one of which is his dad.
We actually both got adopted by more mums to increase the
listenership. Yeah. Basically, what's been happening is the other podcast we do is a TV podcast, and it often comes up that Chris is hard to please when it comes to animated shows. He has historically had trouble getting into them. We've never really been able to 100% identify why. We've put loads of theories forward, but he's watched a bunch, has enjoyed them enough, but has never been able to follow through. Rick and Morty, Season 1, stopped. BoJack Horseman, Season 1, stopped. What else? Avatar, The Last Airbender, 1 season, stopped. And even getting you through the first season was a slog. I had to force you and sit you down and watch the last 4 episodes. So recently, there was another show that Chris had not seen, which I thought he would love, called Fringe, which many of you may know. So I created essentially an entire podcast to make Chris watch Fringe. And every week on that show, on that podcast, we watch an episode of Fringe and then discuss it. And then it occurred to me that this might be the potential solution to Chris's animated problem. Because the problem with a lot of animated shows is... It's
not. I mean, it's not. I'm not ill. Like, do you know what I mean? Well, actually, at the moment, I have got a cold. But, it wasn't a problem I was aware needed a fucking solution. So, excuse my language. We'll try not to swear on this YouTube. But it was, the way you're talking about it, doctors were stood around going, how do we make... This only bothers you. Doesn't even bother me. It only bothers you.
I know, it's true. You got me. So what I thought would be a good idea would be to use yet another thing. Because basically, I think that the problem is, with a lot of animated shows, is they start somewhere and find themselves becoming something better, something different, something a little bit more in depth, because it takes a while for them to build up, particularly kids animated shows. Last Airbender really doesn't get to the deeper stuff until sort of late season 1 and season 2 onwards. And I think that's also true of Adventure Time, and that is also very true, in my opinion, of Steven Universe, a show I absolutely adore. By the way, it's worth noting here that I'm a massive Steven Universe fan. I spend more time on that subreddit than any other subreddit, and that is weird because there are a lot of shows I watch. The fact that that's the one I gravitate towards the fandom of, I don't know why. But there you go. So I'm a huge Steven Universe fan, and I thought this was a perfect opportunity to force you to watch something through until it can really show off what animated television can do, and hopefully get you hooked. I am also acutely aware, though, that there's a serious chance that you're going to hate the show, and I'm going to force you to watch every episode, and it's going to be fucking hilarious. So I can't wait to find out which one it is, Chris. Now, we just sat and watched... I said it like we were forced to. We both just watched...
Just say as well, at this point, we don't know the format of this, so we might be putting 3 of these up at once, but check the description to see what this is, because you might be listening to something which is a combination of us talking about episodes 1 through 3 or something like that.
Yeah, we don't know what the format is. We're just sort of recording them to start with to see how they go, and then sort of it's like a little pilot, which is hence why we don't really have a title yet. So we just watched Gem Glow, which is broadcasted as the first episode. I actually think the second episode is Laser Light Cannon, I think it's called, is actually a better introduction to the world and the characters personally. But this is the episode they throw up first. And what I really want to clarify, first of all, from you, Chris, on a scale of 1 to confused, where do you sit right now?
I don't know, dude. There's ice cream that looks like cats. There's monsters. There's a kid who... And I'm just like, just eat the ice cream, it'll give you the powers. Then he eats the ice cream, he doesn't get the powers. He eats all the ice cream, so he just fucking chucks the fridge. Where's the plug? Where's the plug for the fridge? Was it plugged in at that point? I don't know. Other people have got powers, and that's not explained. I think the worst thing was I was peeing afterwards, and I was like, well, they just don't explain anything. And then I'm like, well, actually, that's a trope in other shows I've complimented before. I quite like it when shows just assume that you know the language of the world. And then I found myself thinking, fucking hell, am I comparing this to The Wire? Like, is that happening in my head? Because that's what I always... The Wire and Atlanta, more recently, are always my go-to examples where it's just like, this is the world, you'll learn it, deal with it. But The Wire didn't have cat ice cream and gems and monsters that put the earth up. I don't know what's going on, man. I don't know. And I think what's also upsetting is, without going into details because I'll get upset, there's some personal stuff going on at the moment. And it's like, I feel like that's making me more like, well, I'll just be honest. I feel like, and you, obviously, Dan asked if we should do Steven Universe today before this happened. So it's kind of like, but I feel like it's worked out in your advantage, oddly, because I feel like I'd be going, I could maybe get into it. Or like, oh, there's, it was quite funny. But instead, I'm just really like, in a pretty like, honest mood. And I'm just instead like, I don't know what the fuck that was, which is more entertaining, I'm sure, for you. But it's really oddly worked out to your advantage. There was a good joke at the end. He threw up. That's not a good joke. Like, I say it out loud, but it made me laugh.
My favorite joke. My favorite joke in the episode is when he first eats the cookie cat and it makes his gem glow, and Pearl just picks up the wrapper and goes, "What's in these?" Like that's not what's supposed to happen at all. I thought that was quite funny.
Yeah. I think it's because he's relaxed. He was relaxed and happy. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's when his powers appeared.
Yeah.
I don't even know what is, but powers. He's just producing a weapon. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. There's very loose gun laws in the US. Why don't you just go buy a weapon? Like, I don't know. It's very weird. I'm not saying even that I hated it, but I mean, at the moment, very much, there'd be no reason for me to keep watching this if we weren't doing this podcast. Like, it didn't make me go, oh, fucking, I really want to find out whether he has to eat more ice cream. I mean, what am I meant to care about at the moment? That's my big thing. What am I meant to care about? Am I meant to care whether the ice cream manufacturers produce more? Am I meant to care about the bugs and the monsters and whether they can protect the universe? Maybe, I assume so. I don't know what I'm meant to care about at the moment.
You know, the amazing thing is, I totally am with you. As a just a piece of entertainment, a single 10 minutes of, and for those, by the way, who don't remember, it's worth noting that the plot of this particular episode, it's worth quickly recapping in case people aren't watching along with us. It's the episode where Steven discovers that because lion lickers have taken over in popularity, the cookie cat, which is the treat that's super duper yummy, because he left his family behind, as per the song.
Yeah, why's the cat got a backstory?
Yeah,
the fucking cookies have. I said I wouldn't swear, but the fucking cookies have more of a backstory than the monsters and the gems and the characters. A fictional product in the show has more of a backstory and characterization than them.
This is the best. Oh, this is exactly what I was hoping this would be.
Just saying.
Okay, so the plot is that the cookie cats are out of stock, but the gems very nicely steal and then go back to pay for, because I don't think Pearl New Amethyst did that. A big batch of the last sort of cookie cats, so he has a little collection in his freezer. And as he's eating one of his last cookie cats,
that just felt like that. Who makes this?
Cartoon Network.
Cartoon Network, and it's for kids.
Yeah.
Just felt like them wanting the best of both worlds. They wanted a twist where they had all the cookies, but they didn't want to, so they were like, oh, someone steals them. Oh, we can't do that. It's for kids. All right. Chucking a line of dialogue about how she goes back to pay for them.
I'll strongly disagree with that, because that's something to be fair, I can understand from your perspective why it seems like that, but when you get to know the characters, you'll realize that's actually a tiny little hint at what these people are like. Like Amethyst is the purple one for your benefit, Chris, is a force for chaos. and not really caring about anything. And the idea that she would just steal them, and then Pearl, the very responsible one, would go, oh, for God's sake, and go back and pay for them, is extraordinarily within character.
Well, right now, in terms of my feelings towards the show, I'm with Amsis.
Amethyst,
I'm not sure what I'm meant to care about.
Yeah. So just to clarify the plot, so he basically discovers that eating the cookie cat, where he thinks he's made correlation because he's eating the cookie cat, and his gem powers, which are at this point undisclosed what that really refers to. And I will say to you, Chris, it does all make sense eventually. You've just got to watch more because it's.
No, I'm sure it does.
Because I don't think I would keep watching the show if it was just utter incomprehensible chaos every week.
No, of course not. No.
So the idea,
but for someone who already, like as explained, and I'd rather not take shit for it because I think it's fine. Like I think it's fine that I just don't particularly. Like, but I mean, if it weren't for my relationship with Dan, I wouldn't even know that I had an aversion to animation. Do you know what I mean? It's not even something that would have come across my radar. Like, hold on, you don't watch that many animated shows. Like, I'd just be merrily going through life. But for someone who has some sort of needs to sit down with a therapist and talk about why he doesn't like the pencil drawings thing, as Dan painted a picture of at the beginning of this. It's even more that in a way makes it even more difficult for me to grab onto.
Yeah, I think
because in my defense, not only was it confusing and what am I meant to feel towards the characters, but also it wasn't, in this episode at least, it wasn't overly funny. Rick and Morty is relatively not confusing, but Rick and Morty grabs you right from the off because it's really, really funny.
Mm-hmm.
BoJack Horseman grabs you with the characters pretty much right away. This didn't do either.
Yeah,
at present.
Okay. I found this episode fairly funny, but I think this show has got its own tone and its own sense of humor, which does take a little while to sort of adjust to. You must have come across shows like that before, where they've had such a unique sense of humor that you didn't really get what it was, and it wasn't. And then you go back.
Yeah, I mean, again, Atlanta.
Yes,
Atlanta.
That Atlanta does have a very bizarre sense of humor that doesn't really once you've watched a few. Yes, Arrested Development, great example. Because I remember watching the first couple of episodes and just thinking it was fine, not that funny. And then I went back after watching it all and falling in love with it. When I watched the first few episodes, some of my favourite jokes are actually in those first few episodes. But the show has to sort of bring you round to its way of doing comedy in a weird way. And that's not a unique phenomenon. There's definitely a lot of shows that do that. I think what's interesting here, and what will be interesting going forward, is this podcast is going to potentially go one of two ways, in my opinion. You're either going to fall in love with the show over time, as I and millions of others have, or you're going to continue to hate it, and it's going to be a very funny podcast because each week you're going to shit on it, and each week I'm going to try and defend it. And that, in its own way, is a form of entertainment. I'm really hoping it's the first because I genuinely the most. I put it this way, in the last sort of 4 or 5 years, the closest I've ever come to being legitimately upset with a show, like, to the point of near tears, was this show. Mm-hmm. It goes to some deep and dark places. Some very emotional places.
Deeper than the kid running out of ice cream?
Yes, much deeper. Mm. There are some serious themes about abandonment, the loss of love, unrequited love, the notion of having responsibility that you don't want thrust upon you is a big theme. Putting your loved ones in danger is a massive theme in this show. It is not afraid to tackle topics, and it does not talk down to kids. And I think that everyone who's listening to this who is into Steven Universe and already knows where this goes understands how deep and how dark and how brilliant and how clever and how much this show achieves in its little 10-minute runtime, while also being a quirky kids cartoon. And I think it is possibly one of the greatest animated shows of all time. It's up there. Certainly if we're talking just in the genre that aimed at kids. I mean, it has a lot more competition once you open the field to, include Archer and Rick and Morty and some of those other really incredible sort of more adult-themed comedies like South Park and things like that. But I think certainly if you take it down to the level of like kids shows, the only two shows I can think of that compete with it are Avatar: The Last Airbender and Over the Garden Wall. And I think this one's going to be the most interesting because I think you hit the nail on the head. You were like, what am I supposed to care about? That's the thing you look for in a TV show. And when I think about those three shows, the one that is most likely to elicit an emotional response ultimately from you is this one. But the problem is, this one is ultimately takes a while to get there. But at least with this, when you're not getting the emotional thing you need from it right up top, you will get explanations and answers and intrigue because the show is intentionally concealed its setup from you almost, and you will get dribs and drabs of what's really going on and what the gems really are. You know, they're these sort of, they're not, because they're different to other people. Obviously, you can clearly see that they're different colors for a start, and they have these gemstones and apparently these powers. Certainly at this point, you've seen them have the ability to create weapons from essentially thin air, and you know that they seem to be defending the world in some way from some form of monsters. I mean, that's all in that episode. How much you take from that, though, is a different thing, and what you want to take out of that intrigue-wise, and whether you're interested in getting answers to what the fuck is going on, is a different story. But the good thing is, because of doing this, you're sort of forced to, and that's going to be interesting.
I was going to say, what also works in its favour is I'm being forced to watch it, so
yeah.
The dream.
So yeah, it's the dream. But so let's very quickly before we wrap up, because I think we this one's probably, I had a feeling this one might end up being slightly longer than the others because I had to do a bit of setup at the beginning. Generally speaking, we're going to aim for between 10 and 15 minutes for these little recaps. I didn't finish actually recapping the plot of the episode because we kept getting off track. Very quickly, Stephen thinks the glowing is related to his cookie cat ice creams because his shield appears when he eats one. Then a monster comes and he thinks, great, I'll just eat some ice cream, and it doesn't work. And in the end, he has to find another way to help the gems with that particular predicament. But that's pretty much it. Also, he eats so much ice cream in his attempt to get his shield out that he makes himself very ill, which I thought was very funny. So yeah, that's the recap of it. I think generally these will be about 10-15 minutes. So we'll be back at some point. Again, we don't know the schedule of this at this point. We're going to record a few ahead and see how it flows before we actually release any. So when you're hearing this, if you're hearing this, we've recorded several already. But we will be back at some point in the future discussing laser light cannon.